For millions of years, Earth has been traveling through space, surrounded by countless asteroids and comets. Most of them are small and harmless. Tiny fragments burn up in our atmosphere every day, creating the beautiful streaks of light we call shooting stars. But sometimes, space sends something much larger. A massive asteroid, something big enough to change the entire planet. About 66 million years ago, an asteroid roughly 10 kilometers wide struck Earth near what is now Mexico. The impact triggered one of the most devastating extinction events in the history of life. Nearly 75% of all species disappeared, including the dinosaurs. But what would happen if something like that happened today? What if a giant asteroid was heading directly toward Earth? At first, scientists might detect it years before the impact. Astronomers around the world constantly monitor the sky, tracking objects that pass close to Earth. If a large asteroid was discovered on a collision course with our planet, the news would spread quickly. Governments would begin planning emergency responses. Space agencies might attempt to change the asteroid's trajectory using spacecraft or explosives. But if the asteroid were too large, stopping it might be impossible. As the asteroid approached Earth, it would become brighter in the night sky. Eventually, it might appear as a glowing object streaking toward the planet. And then the final moments would begin. As the asteroid enters Earth's atmosphere, it would be traveling at speeds of around 20 kilometers per second. Friction with the atmosphere would heat the rock until it glows brighter than the sun. A massive fireball would appear in the sky. But unlike small meteors that burn up before reaching the ground, a giant asteroid would survive the descent. Within seconds, it would collide with the surface of the Earth. The explosion would be beyond anything humanity has ever experienced. The energy released by the impact would be equal to billions of nuclear bombs exploding at once. The asteroid would carve a massive crater into the planet's surface, possibly over 100 kilometers wide. Everything within hundreds of kilometers would be instantly destroyed. Cities, forests, mountains, wiped away in seconds. The impact would launch enormous amounts of rock, dust, and debris into the atmosphere. Some of this material would be blasted completely into space. But much of it would fall back toward Earth. And when it did, it would create another disaster. As the debris re-entered the atmosphere, it would heat the air around the planet. The sky would glow red. Temperatures across large parts of the Earth could suddenly spike. Fires would ignite across continents. Entire forests could burn. The planet would be surrounded by massive wildfires. At the same time, the impact would trigger enormous earthquakes. Shockwaves would travel through the Earth's crust. Volcanoes might erupt across different regions of the world. And if the asteroid struck the ocean, another terrifying effect would occur. A giant asteroid striking the ocean would generate colossal tsunamis. Waves hundreds of meters tall could travel across entire oceans. Coastal cities would have almost no chance of survival. Within hours, massive waves would crash into shorelines around the planet. Ports, islands, and coastal regions would be devastated. But even after the tsunamis and earthquakes ended, the worst effects might still be ahead. The dust and debris thrown into the atmosphere would block sunlight from reaching the surface of the Earth. For weeks or even months, the sky could become dark and gray. This event is often called an impact winter. Without sunlight, temperatures across the planet would begin dropping. Plants would struggle to survive. Photosynthesis would slow down or stop entirely. And when plants begin dying, the entire food chain begins collapsing. Animals that rely on plants would starve. Predators would soon follow. Global ecosystems could begin breaking down rapidly. Agriculture would also collapse. Crops would fail across many regions of the world. Food supplies would become extremely limited. Even if some humans survived the initial impact, long-term survival would become extremely difficult. Cold temperatures, lack of sunlight, and food shortages would create one of the most severe crises humanity has ever faced. Some scientists believe that underground shelters or remote regions might allow small groups of people to survive. But civilization as we know it would be drastically changed. Over time, however, the dust in the atmosphere would slowly begin settling. Sunlight would return to the planet. Temperatures would gradually stabilize. Life on Earth has survived catastrophic events before, and it might recover again. But recovery could take thousands or even millions of years. New ecosystems would eventually form. New species might evolve. The planet would continue changing, just as it always has. The idea of a giant asteroid hitting Earth may sound like science fiction. But in reality, it has already happened before. And astronomers continue monitoring space to ensure that we are prepared if something similar appears in the future. For now, Earth remains a small, fragile world traveling through a vast and unpredictable universe. And somewhere out there, countless asteroids continue drifting silently through the darkness of space.